What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and there's a new kind of release. Obviously, Stranger Things season 4 has come out, which has gotten kind of thrust Netflix back into the spotlight. But underneath all the success in general of Stranger Things season 4, they've launched an attempt to crack down on passwords because they have hundreds of millions of users that are getting their service quote unquote for free or as a part of somebody else's shared password or shared account. And they don't like that. They want your money. So they roll out this convoluted $2 per additional user per this, per that program. And it's been a complete disaster. Netflix has been suffering a bit of a fall from grace, but they seem to be trying to right the course by telling woke staff to find a different job if they are offended by the content that they put out. And even over the past week or so, their stock has begun to rise again. And I think it's probably because investors are seeing, okay, Netflix is getting away from the kind of the we don't care if we make money, we just want to make woke content stuff, to getting back to just making money. You see, Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos defends Dave Chappelle's comedy, the comedian of our generation. Sarandos told the New York Times he was surprised by employees' reaction, but stood behind his decision to put Chappelle on the platform. He emphasized that comedians can only figure out where the line is by crossing the line every once in a while. Well, I think that, ultimately you have Netflix, who really only has kind of the comedy as their real offering right now. I mean, outside of Stranger Things, it's difficult to say. And I think that, the success of Stranger Things 4 or season 4, having it break records kind of proves that while there are some, this season, some elements that some people are like, oh, it's getting woke or whatever, and maybe the people behind the show are a little bit woke. The show itself is just, in general, good old-fashioned nostalgic entertainment. Many of my viewers, I was gonna start watching it but then people told me they broke it up into a cliffhanger, and like they broke up the season into 2 parts. So I thought maybe I'd wait for the second part to come out to watch the first part. But most people are saying that it's very, very good. And if you look at this, their stock, well, today it's not doing great. But if we look over the last 5 days, it's gone up nearly 10%. And this seems to follow a wave of communications from Netflix that they're getting away from this woke content. They talked about, hey, go find a different job somewhere else. If you don't like it, if you're offended by our content, don't work here. And look at that. The stock has gone up nearly 10%. And you wonder exactly why that might be. Well, again, it's because people understand that, even though on the back of, Netflix and Hollywood, Netflix slips and Hollywood cheers, but maybe it shouldn't. Netflix is losing subscribers. Does that mean Netflix has a problem or streaming has a problem? Hollywood spent years ignoring Netflix, then spent years resenting it. And more recently, Hollywood has contorted itself to trying to be Netflix. But now things are different. Hollywood is happy to tell you how badly Netflix has screwed up. This is all anyone wants to talk about, says a talent rep who's happy to describe anonymously because, like most people in town, he does business with Netflix and wants to keep doing business with Netflix. All the ways that Netflix has mismanaged itself. This got much easier to do following Netflix's shocking earnings report in April, when the streaming company, which has always defined itself as a growth machine, announced it had lost subscribers for the first time in a decade. If you don't enjoy Netflix fall, but if you don't get to enjoy Netflix's fall, if you're tumbling too, which means a lot who make money from movies and TVs need to convince themselves that Netflix's ongoing problems. The company has already announced that it will lose yet another 2 million subscribers in spring, are Netflix problems, not their problems. That's because the other scenario is that Hollywood and Wall Street have misjudged the consumer's appetite for streaming video, would have enormous ripple effects. Companies that hope to sell streaming subscriptions to hundreds of millions of people around the world would have to restructure. People who pay their rent making entertainment could see the endless faucet of production work start to sputter. And consumers who have gotten used to an endless buffet of entertainment, often sold to them at a loss, might end up with fewer choices at higher prices, which is what a top executive at one of Netflix's biggest competitors tells me is going to happen. Not immediately, but eventually. From a consumer experience perspective, of things are going to get a little worse. They've been enjoying a subsidized and unsustainable amount of choice, he said. And I think there's going to be a little less choice across the ecosystem. There's even a phrase whispered quietly for the fear that the good times brought on by the billions Netflix and its competitors spent securing content could be coming to a close. The Netflix chill. And we've seen this now. Netflix, there was an article earlier today that talked about, Netflix is going to focus on fewer releases, but try to make them bigger, like tentpole events. You can see the outlines of what that looks like at Netflix itself. It's already cut staff with more layoffs reportedly on the way. It's dumping projects it had in development. One network boss I talked to said that he has started seeing a ton of pitches for stuff that used to be attached to Netflix, but now has been cut loose. A group that includes a project announced with fanfare last year from former royal don't care Meghan loser Markle, and most surprisingly, Netflix is going to start selling a version of its service with ads. After spending all of its life insisting that it would never do that. But now, for now, most of the media is happy to argue that Netflix has belly flopped on its own, leaving everyone else to say, I told you so, even if we're saying something else very recently, if they were. We know without you, we would just be Netflix. Fox Sports CEO Eric Shanks told advertisers at the company's upfront sales last month. It's a joke he certainly wouldn't have trotted out there 2 years ago, when the first wave of the lockdowns put the ad business in a tailspin at the same time Netflix was adding record numbers of subscribers. Now it's a very safe roast. If you want to be one of the big boys, you have to act like one of the big boys, says another talent rep. Again, anonymously, because he's still in the business of taking Netflix's money. He goes on to list all the things that Netflix should do to change. Market its individual movies and TV shows instead of marketing, quote, Netflix. Make better movies and put some of them into theaters, and not just a handful of places to qualify for afterwards, but in lots of theaters where lots of people can watch them. Stop releasing all of its shows at once and spread them out weekly. This is something we see Disney doing. For all of the problems I have with Disney as a corporation, their shows are still what you would call appointment television. They have just one episode a week, at least of the current shows, and you've got to wait unless you wait till the show to be over and then you binge it. In short, do all the things traditional media companies did before Netflix changed the industry. A related critique is that Netflix could solve its problems if it was better. That's what Roy Price, the first executive to run Amazon's streaming foyer, thinks. Price was pushed out over allegations, which he denies. I think that Netflix has a programming problem, Price told me. What was the last great Netflix show? That argument, replace executives who picked your shows and movies and replace them with someone else. It's the most old media argument there is, which doesn't mean it's wrong. For now, Netflix insists that all of its top executives, including co-CEOs Reed Hastings and Ted Sarandos, and content bosses don't care, are doing great. Well, I would agree that, and this is what I've said, that they need better shows. They're right. You need to understand the economics of these things only kick in at around 400 million subscribers, a mogul told me. Noting that Netflix, which still has the biggest audience in the world, is barely breaking even at 220 million subscribers. What happens if investors decide they no longer want to fund global entertainment giants if those giants aren't going to make money? For starters, it'll cause problems for the likes of Candle Media, a holding company created by two former Disney execs, backed by private equity giant Blackstone. Since starting up last year, it's gone on a spending spree. The fact that Netflix isn't making money is actually quite shocking. The stock market right now, nothing goes up and to the right forever. So nightmare scenario for Hollywood, at least one unpleasant dream version, is that Netflix's problems are everyone's problems. And if Netflix is already losing customers to newcomers, that means the market isn't nearly as big as everyone had been hoping. Again, that they're barely breaking even at 220 million subscribers. That's nuts. I mean, in one of these articles, Netflix loses $6 billion a year just in password sharing. Netflix and other U.S. streaming video services lose about $25 billion a year in potential revenue due to password sharing alone, which is why they rolled this out. Shocking no one, Netflix's password crackdown is already failing. Netflix's password sharing test in Peru is confusing subscribers, report suggests. Why are they testing it in Peru? You see it here. Netflix runs trial crackdown on password sharing in Peru and Chile and Costa Rica. Netflix, but users blast confusing system as stock falls below $200. So even this, although most of us already know this is scientific fact, Netflix seems to think it's possible to solve this unavoidable thorn in the side for virtually everyone in an online subscription service. They're talking about password sharing. Recently, the company began testing a fee-based password sharing option for customers in Costa Rica, Chile, and Peru. The results so far, predictably awful, as you can imagine it. According to a report earlier today from BI, users in Netflix's South American subscription experiment have been left confused by the policy, while also noting it's still not enforced. In theory, subscribers are to be charged another $2.99 for every person outside the household who logs into their accounts, but what constitutes a household is both nebulous and misleading. Although many Netflix customers assumed it meant immediate family members regardless of location, it apparently refers to a single fixed domicile address, which is what I would expect. It's not just audiences who are unsure of the potential of the new monthly increase. Official Netflix employees are giving contradictory explanations as well. One named unnamed customer service rep told Insider that if a customer called asserting that a member of their household was using an account from a different location, she was instructing to tell them that the person could continue to use the account via a verification code without incurring a charge. No one is arguing that Netflix needs to reassess how it approaches the streaming battles, but if this is the best it has to offer, it might as well go ahead and concede defeat. Yikes. Make better programming, Netflix, and even that may not be enough to save you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you click that red subscribe button down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.